On Christmas Eve, a poor mail-order bride had no dinner until the rancher shared his plate. The cold wind whipped across the landing platform of Elysium 12. The settlement, a scattering of metal buildings and domed greenhouses, glittered under the artificial Christmas lights projected by the colony's AI. Leora pulled her thin coat tighter around her shoulders, shivering. Her boots scuffed against the frost-coated metal, but it offered little comfort. After weeks of travel across the stars, she finally arrived at her new home, but home felt distant, strange, and unforgiving. She had imagined this moment countless times on the transport ship. Perhaps she would step into warmth, smiles, and a welcoming voice. Instead, she found silence, cold, and bureaucratic indifference. The landing hub was empty. Most colonists had already returned to their families or friends, leaving the small newcomer alone in the blinking, humming terminal. Leora's stomach growled, reminding her that she had eaten nothing since the meager breakfast rations aboard the transport. The colony lights shimmered against the frost, but they only made her loneliness more apparent. A faint hum of machinery came from the mining rigs beyond the settlement. The constant work of extracting Elysium 12's resources contrasted with the soft cheer of the holiday projections. Life went on here, regardless of who was new or lost. She approached the terminal that displayed housing assignments, trying to make sense of her small allocation of credits and her modest quarters. The AI's voice, cheerful but cold, read her permit aloud. Leora Vance, Housing Unit 14, be welcome to Elysium 12. Please follow protocols. Protocols don't feed me, Leora muttered under her breath. Her voice sounded strange in the empty hall. The words echoed back at her, making the building feel even more vast and impersonal. She glanced at the small map, noting the path to her assigned unit. It was a walk of several hundred meters across icy metal walkways, with no shelter along the way. Her stomach twisted, and she hesitated, wondering if she should try to find food first. But all the settlement kitchens were closed. Even the snack dispensers required credits she no longer had. Leora's hands trembled as she buttoned her coat. She wondered if she had made a mistake. The journey across the stars had been long and tiring, but she had imagined starting fresh, making a new life. Yet here, on the edge of civilization, she felt small, like a forgotten piece in a machine that had no space for her. She began walking toward Unit 14B, her boots crunching against frost-covered metal. The wind cut through her thin coat and she hugged herself, trying to find warmth. The settlement was quiet. The occasional hum of distant machinery was the only sound that broke the silence. Leora's thoughts wandered. What kind of life awaited her here? Would she ever belong? Would anyone even notice if she disappeared? As she walked, she passed the domed greenhouses where the colony grew its food. The warm light inside made her stomach twist with longing. She pressed her face against the glass, peering inside. Rows of glowing plants stretched toward the ceiling, feeding on artificial sunlight. Workers were nowhere in sight. It was as if the plants grew themselves, silently mocking her hunger. A sudden noise startled her, a clang from a nearby maintenance shed. Leora froze, holding her breath. From the shadows emerged a tall figure, broad-shouldered and rugged, carrying a crate. He didn't seem surprised to see her. In fact, he paused for a moment, studying her with calm, assessing eyes. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice low but not unkind. I don't have any food," Leora admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt embarrassed to say it out loud. She had never been this vulnerable, never this exposed. The man tilted his head as if considering her words. "Not many go hungry here, but I can see you're new. What's your name?" Leora Vance." She straightened her back slightly, though the cold wind made her shiver. "I'm Jarek," he said. "I keep things running at the ranch on the outskirts." He gestured vaguely toward the horizon, where the settlement thinned into barren, icy land dotted with small enclosures and fences. "You're far from the center. Walking there now won't help much." Leora swallowed hard. She had no plan, no credits to buy food, and no family waiting here. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Jarek studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Follow me. You look like you need a plate more than directions. Without waiting for her response, he turned and walked toward the ridge where his ranch house stood. Leora hesitated, unsure if she should trust a stranger, but hunger drove her forward. The walk to the ranch house was harsh. The wind howled across the icy plain, but the small building ahead promised warmth. Smoke curled lazily from a chimney, and the faint smell of roasted protein reached her nose, making her stomach growl even louder. Jarek moved with ease, stepping over frozen patches and uneven walkways. Leora struggled to keep up, her breath visible in the cold air. When they finally entered the house, the warmth hit her immediately. The ranch house was small but cozy, with rough wooden furniture, a simple table, and a small stove. Jarek moved to a counter and pulled out a plate of steaming stew, fresh bread, and a cup of spiced tea. The aroma was almost unbearable to Leora, who had gone so long without proper food. You eat first, Jarek said, setting the plate before her. I've got time. Leora hesitated, unsure if she should accept, but the hunger in her belly overcame pride. She took the spoon, savoring the warmth and flavor of the stew. The bread was soft and sweet, the tea comforting. She ate slowly, almost afraid it was a dream. Jarek watched her, leaning against the counter. Not many travelers make it out here alone, he said. It's a hard world, cold, empty, but it has its moments. I didn't expect anyone to care, Leora admitted between bites. I thought I would just disappear in the crowd. He shook his head. We notice even if the settlement doesn't. People think the machines run the colony, but it's humans who make it work. We help each other when we can. For the first time since arriving, Leora felt a flicker of hope. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that even on the edge of civilization, humans could show kindness, that she could find a place here. After she finished, Jarek poured her another cup of tea and sat down across from her. They spoke quietly, sharing small stories of life in the colony. Jarek told her about the genetically engineered livestock he raised, the harsh winters, and the strange alien fauna that sometimes wandered near the ranch. Leora listened, fascinated, and found herself laughing at his dry humor. In return, she told him about her home on Earth, the long journey across space, and the hope that led her to Elysium 12. She realized that for the first time in weeks, she felt a connection to someone who understood the fragility and resilience of life. As the night wore on, the wind outside grew stronger, rattling the metal walls of the small ranch house. But inside, the warmth and human presence were enough to keep her spirits alive. She had arrived lonely, hungry, and unsure of herself, but by sharing a simple meal with Jarek, she felt seen, valued, and for the first time a little at home. Outside, the Christmas lights projected by the colony AI continued to shimmer across the frost, but they no longer felt cold or distant. They reflected the human kindness she had just experienced, a reminder that even in the harshest places, people could bring warmth to one another. And so, Leora sat by the stove, sipping her tea, listening to the wind, and realizing that perhaps this cold, distant world had room for her after all. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the exhaustion of the journey melt into the comfort of human care. On Elysium 12, she had arrived as a stranger, but she would not stay one for long. The next morning, Elysium 12 was quiet but alive. The frost on the metal walkways sparkled under the weak artificial sunlight, giving the colony a cold, silver glow. Leora woke up in the small bed in Jarek's ranch house, the warmth from the stove still lingering in the room. For the first time since arriving, she felt rested. Her body ached from the long journey, but her mind was lighter. She was not alone anymore. She stepped outside, pulling her coat tight around her shoulders. The ranch house yard was small, surrounded by fences, and a few pens where Jarek kept his livestock, strange creatures with patches of fur, long ears, and gentle eyes that seemed to watch her curiously. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, and her breath made small clouds in the cold morning air. Jarek was already outside, tending to one of the creatures. He moved with calm efficiency, feeding the animals, checking their health, and adjusting the fences. Leora watched him for a moment, realizing that the man she had met last night was not just a rancher. He was the heart of this small, fragile ecosystem on the edge of the colony. "You're up early," Jarek said without turning. His voice was calm, but there was a hint of amusement in it. I couldn't sleep," Leora admitted. She hesitated, unsure how much to say. "The frost keeps me awake sometimes." He nodded, finally glancing at her. "The first few nights are always the hardest. The cold, the silence, you're not used to it yet, but you'll get used to it." "I hope so," she said quietly. She shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. Jarek walked over and handed her a small brush. "Here, help me groom them. It's easier than walking through the frost doing nothing." Leora took the brush with a small smile. The creatures were gentle, almost like they understood she was new and cautious. As she brushed their fur, she realized that there was something calming about this work. It kept her hands busy, her mind focused, and for a little while she forgot about the hunger, the cold, and the loneliness that had shadowed her since her arrival. "You have a way with them," Jarek said, watching her carefully. "Most humans don't. They're skittish at first, but they trust you." Leora blushed, unsure how to respond. "I like animals," she said simply. "They're honest. They don't hide feelings like humans sometimes do." Jarek smiled, a rare expression for him. "You'll fit in here better than you think." After a while, they finished with the animals. Jarek led Leora inside for breakfast, a simple meal of bread, eggs from the ranch's birds, and tea. As they ate, Leora noticed something strange. There were no other colonists around. The settlement itself seemed empty, almost frozen in time. "Where is everyone?" she asked between bites. "They're at work," Jarek replied. "The mines, the farms, the factories, people here don't take Christmas off like back on Earth. But the work keeps the colony alive. Without it, none of us would eat." Leora nodded, trying to understand. Life here was different. It was harsh, demanding, and unforgiving. But there was a strange beauty in it too, a sense that people survived because they chose to, not because it was easy. After breakfast, Jarek suggested they take a walk along the edge of the settlement. The wind was stronger now, whipping across the frozen landscape, but Leora felt more confident. She followed him, stepping carefully over icy patches and listening to the hum of machinery in the distance. As they walked, Jarek told her about the colony's history. How it had started as a small mining outpost, how the first settlers had struggled with cold, isolation, and alien wildlife. He spoke of the colony's AI, which controlled lighting, temperature, and food production, but lacked the human touch that made life worth living. "You see," he said, pointing toward the horizon where the settlement ended, "this place can survive on machines alone, but it thrives because humans care. We notice each other. We share. We help when needed. That's why you're here with me, Leora. Because humans matter more than machines." Leora listened, fascinated. She had never thought about survival in this way. Back on Earth, she had assumed people relied on systems, on technology, on schedules. But here she realized, human compassion, ingenuity, and effort were what truly kept the colony alive. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed from the settlement center. Red lights flashed in the distance, casting long shadows across the snow and metal walkways. Leora froze, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, clutching Jarek's arm. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he scanned the horizon, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Trouble," he said finally. "The nutrient farm. Something's gone wrong with the systems. If it fails, people will go hungry." Leora felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Can't the AI fix it?" she asked. "Not always," Jarek replied. Sometimes humans need to step in, and right now that means we do. Without another word, he grabbed a small toolkit and led Leora toward the settlement center. The wind whipped at their faces, making it hard to see, but Jarek moved with confidence, navigating the icy walkways as if he had done it 1,000 times. Leora struggled to keep up, but she refused to fall behind. When they arrived, the site was chaotic. Colonists were running back and forth, trying to stabilize systems, check monitors, and communicate with the AI. Screens flickered red with error messages, and a low, mechanical hum filled the air. Leora's stomach churned. She had never been part of something so critical, so urgent. Jarek handed her a datapad. "Follow my instructions," he said. "You can help." For the first time, Leora felt fear mixed with purpose. Her hands trembled as she accessed the farm's control system. The interface was complicated, designed for engineers who had years of training. But she remembered what Jarek had said last night. Humans could solve problems machines could not. Taking a deep breath, she began to analyze the error codes, cross-checking energy flows and rerouting power to critical sections. Minutes passed like hours. Leora's mind raced, but she refused to panic. The colonists around her worked tirelessly, but she realized that her actions mattered too. One wrong input could worsen the situation. She focused, thinking carefully, trusting her instincts. Finally, a green light flashed across the datapad. The system was stabilizing. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Jarek clapped her on the shoulder, a proud, rare smile on his face. "You did it," he said. "We all did it, but your quick thinking saved time. The farm will keep running." Relief washed over Leora. For the first time since arriving on Elysium 12, she felt she belonged. She had contributed. She had mattered. The thought warmed her more than any stove or blanket could. The colonists began to calm, checking the systems one last time before returning to their tasks. Leora and Jarek stepped outside, the cold wind hitting their faces once more. But it felt different now. She no longer felt small or invisible. She had been part of something important. "See," Jarek said, walking beside her, "humans matter, machines are useful, but without us, well, we'd all be in trouble." Leora nodded, smiling. "I think I understand now." They walked back to the ranch house in silence, the frost sparkling around them like a quiet celebration. Leora realized that the cold, harsh world she had feared was not unforgiving. It was a place that challenged humans, yes, but also rewarded those who chose courage, compassion, and ingenuity. When they arrived, Jarek set out a small meal of stew and bread. Leora ate with renewed appetite, the events of the day giving the simple food a new significance. It was more than survival now. It was shared effort, human ingenuity, and a reminder that even on the edge of the universe, connection mattered. That night as she lay in bed, Leora thought about the day's events. She had been scared, exhausted, and uncertain. But she had also discovered something new about herself and about humanity, that even in the harshest places, humans could shine, and even a newcomer could make a difference. Elysium 12 was still cold, still distant, and still lonely in many ways. But Leora no longer felt invisible. She felt part of something larger, something that mattered. And as she closed her eyes, the artificial Christmas lights outside her window flickered gently, reflecting in her mind as a quiet promise. Survival was important, but humans were what made life worth living. The morning on Elysium 12 arrived with a thin, icy sun casting long shadows across the settlement. The frost that had coated the metal walkways the day before glittered faintly, giving the colony a strange beauty. Leora stepped outside, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. The air was crisp, each breath forming clouds that vanished into the cold. She paused to look at Jarek's ranch house, small but sturdy, standing against the barren land. The previous day's events had changed something inside her. She no longer felt like a fragile newcomer. Instead, there was a quiet confidence in her movements, a sense that she could face the challenges of this strange world. Jarek was already outside, tending to the livestock. The strange creatures, partly furred, partly scaled, with soft eyes that seemed almost human, watched him carefully. He moved with practiced ease, feeding, checking fences, and observing their behavior. Leora approached quietly, brushing snow from her boots, and noticed how natural he looked in this setting. The ranch, the creatures, and the man himself seemed to exist in perfect balance with the harsh environment. "Good morning," she said softly. He glanced at her, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Morning, Leora, sleep well." "Yes, better than I expected," she admitted. "Thank you again for yesterday." Jarek nodded, handing her a small bucket. "We've got work to do. Some of the pens need cleaning and the creatures like to eat first." "Help me," Leora accepted, and together they moved through the yard, brushing fur, feeding the animals, and repairing small fences. The work was exhausting, but it was also satisfying. Each task reminded her that life here required effort, but also offered a sense of accomplishment. For the first time since arriving, she felt useful, part of something that mattered. After several hours, Jarek led her inside for a mid-morning meal. Unlike the rushed, silent breakfast she had eaten before, this one was relaxed. Jarek placed a steaming plate of stew, bread, and fresh tea before her. The aroma was intoxicating, and Leora's stomach growled in anticipation. "You eat first," Jarek said, leaning against the counter with a small smile. "I've got plenty." Leora hesitated briefly. Accepting kindness still felt strange to her, but hunger and trust won over. She picked up her spoon and tasted the stew. Warm, rich, and satisfying, it was unlike anything she had eaten since leaving Earth. The bread was soft, almost sweet, and the tea soothed her throat. As she ate, Jarek watched quietly, a gentle presence. After a few bites, he finally spoke. "Not many people make it out here alone. You're new, and yet you adapt fast. That's rare." Leora paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "I don't know if I'm adapting," she admitted. "I'm scared a lot, but I want to try. I don't want to fail." Jarek nodded thoughtfully. "Fear is natural. It's what you do with it that matters. You've already helped stabilize the nutrient farm yesterday. That took courage and clear thinking. That's adapting." Leora felt a warmth spread through her, not from the stew but from his words. For the first time, someone acknowledged her abilities instead of seeing her as fragile or helpless. She smiled quietly, savoring both the food and the recognition. After they finished eating, Jarek poured her another cup of tea. "Come on," he said. "I want to show you something." Curious, Leora followed him outside. The wind was sharper now, cutting across the plain and making her cheeks sting. But Jarek led her to a small ridge overlooking the settlement and the surrounding landscape. From here the colony seemed almost peaceful, the frost sparkling under the weak sun. "This," Jarek said, gesturing broadly, "is what we're protecting. Life, work, hope, all of it. Out here, humans matter more than machines. We can feed ourselves, care for each other, and survive even when the odds are against us. That's what makes this place livable." Leora stared at the view, the vastness of the colony and the frozen wilderness beyond. It was beautiful, but also harsh. "It's amazing," she whispered. "I never thought survival could feel like this, like something worth fighting for." Jarek's eyes softened. "That's because humans are special. Machines can do tasks, monitor systems, and manage energy. But only humans bring heart, creativity, and empathy. Only we can notice when someone is hungry, scared, or lost, and do something about it." Leora felt a surge of gratitude. For weeks, she had wondered if she mattered. Now, standing on this ridge, she realized that she did. Humans, even small and fragile ones like her, could make a difference. They walked back to the ranch house, talking quietly about life on Elysium 12. Jarek shared stories of past colonists, both successes and failures, and Leora listened, fascinated. She learned how humans had built this settlement from almost nothing, how they had faced alien creatures, frozen winters, and failing machinery, and survived. Each story deepened her understanding of what it meant to be human in this frontier. When they returned to the ranch house, Jarek suggested they prepare another meal. Leora was eager to help this time, chopping vegetables, stirring the stew, and learning the subtle ways Jarek seasoned the food to make it more satisfying. Working together in the kitchen, side by side, brought a sense of camaraderie and purpose. Once the meal was ready, they sat at the small table, sharing the food as if it were a celebration. Leora marveled at how much more satisfying it was to eat together than alone. Sharing a meal felt like more than just survival. It was connection, trust, and understanding all wrapped into one. "See," Jarek said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Even the simplest plate of food can mean a lot when it's shared. It's not just about eating. It's about caring, noticing, and helping each other." Leora nodded, savoring the warmth from both the stew and his words. She realized that the past day and night had changed something inside her. She was no longer just a newcomer, scared and unsure. She was a part of this small corner of the universe, and her presence mattered. After the meal, Jarek suggested they take a walk through the outskirts of the ranch. The frost crunched under their boots and the cold air stung their faces, but Leora felt alive. She had learned in just a day that survival was not just about machines, food, or shelter. It was about human effort, courage, and connection. As they walked, Jarek showed her small details of the ranch, the way the fences were constructed to withstand storms, the hidden water sources, and the careful feeding routines of the livestock. Leora asked questions eagerly, wanting to understand everything. Jarek answered patiently, impressed by her curiosity and determination. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the frozen land. Leora felt a quiet happiness, a sense of belonging she had not expected to find so soon. She realized that she had been afraid of this new life, afraid of failure and loneliness, but now she understood that fear was just part of the journey. With courage, empathy, and a willingness to learn, humans could thrive even in the harshest places. As night fell, Jarek lit a small fire inside the ranch house. They sat together, warming themselves and sipping tea. Leora felt a sense of peace she had not known for weeks. The world outside was still cold and harsh, but inside humans had created warmth, comfort, and connection. "You're doing well, Leora," Jarek said quietly, breaking the silence. "You've faced the cold, the machines, and your own doubts, and you've come through stronger." She smiled softly, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. "I never thought I could," she admitted. "But being here with you, seeing what humans can do, it gives me hope." Jarek nodded. "That's what humans do. We create hope even when the odds are against us. And we help each other along the way. Never forget that." Leora closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the fire, the taste of the shared meal, and the quiet presence of Jarek sink in. For the first time since arriving on Elysium 12, she felt truly part of something larger. The cold, lonely frontier no longer seemed quite so intimidating. Humans, she realized, could make life meaningful anywhere, even here, at the edge of the universe. As the night deepened, the frost-covered landscape outside shimmered under the soft glow of the colony's artificial lights. Leora knew that challenges awaited her, that survival here would not always be easy. But for the first time, she also knew that she had the courage, skill, and support to face whatever came next. And so, as she sat by the fire, sipping tea and sharing silence with Jarek, Leora understood that life on Elysium 12 was not just about surviving. It was about thriving, connecting, and finding warmth, even in the coldest, most distant places. The morning on Elysium 12 began quietly, with a thin layer of frost covering the metal walkways and the cold sun struggling to rise over the horizon. Leora woke early, her thoughts still buzzing from the events of the past 2 days. She had discovered courage, learned about the ranch, and felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. But as she stepped outside, she noticed a tension in the air that she could not ignore. Jarek was already up, moving quickly between the livestock pens. His usual calm was replaced with a subtle urgency. Leora felt a knot in her stomach. "What's wrong?" she asked, hurrying to keep up. "The nutrient farm," he said, his voice low but firm. "Something's wrong again. The AI is failing to stabilize the energy flow. If it doesn't get fixed quickly, the colony could lose a large portion of its food supply." Leora's eyes widened. She remembered how she had helped yesterday, but this felt bigger, more dangerous. "Can I help?" she asked immediately. She had discovered a new confidence and she wanted to be useful again. Jarek gave a quick nod. "You can follow me." They hurried across the settlement, the cold biting at their faces, their boots crunching against frost. The colony was unusually quiet, with most colonists already moving toward the farm. Red warning lights flashed across the distant buildings, painting the landscape with a sense of urgency. Leora's stomach twisted, but she refused to let fear control her. She had faced challenges before and she could do it again. When they arrived, the site was chaotic. Screens flickered with error messages, alarms rang, and small groups of colonists scrambled to stabilize systems. Jarek immediately began issuing instructions, moving between consoles with ease. Leora followed, clutching a datapad he had handed her. "Look for inconsistencies in the energy flow," he said quickly. "The AI isn't responding fast enough. We need human eyes on the problem." Leora's hands shook slightly as she accessed the system. The interface was complex, filled with blinking lights, graphs, and error codes. But she remembered Jarek's words. Humans can solve problems machines cannot. Taking a deep breath, she began analyzing the flow, checking connections, and noting which sectors were failing. Minutes passed, but every second felt critical. A sense of urgency pressed down on her, and the hum of the failing farm echoed in her mind. Colonists moved around her, but she focused entirely on the task. Slowly, patterns emerged, and she realized that some of the energy was being misrouted to non-essential sectors, leaving the critical areas underpowered. "Jarek," she called, pointing to a section on the display. "Some of the circuits are sending power away from the main farm modules. If we reroute them, it could stabilize the system." He glanced over quickly, then nodded. "Good eye, do it." Her fingers flew over the interface, rerouting energy, adjusting flow rates, and carefully monitoring the systems. She could feel the tension in the room, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The colony depended on them, and failure was not an option. Slowly, the red warning lights began to fade, replaced by green indicators. The hum of machinery steadied. Leora let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "It's working," she whispered. Jarek clapped her on the shoulder. "You did it," he said proudly. "That's what humans bring to the table. Machines alone wouldn't have figured this out." Around them, colonists began to relax, checking systems and confirming that the farm was stable. Leora felt a surge of pride and relief. She had faced fear, worked under pressure, and made a difference. For the first time, she fully understood the meaning of human ingenuity and courage in the harsh frontier. But the crisis was not over. As they surveyed the farm, a secondary alarm began to ring. Jarek's eyes narrowed. "The water recycling system is failing. If we don't act fast, the animals and crops could suffer." Leora felt a shiver of anxiety, but she refused to step back. "What do we do?" she asked, ready to help again. "We split up," Jarek said quickly. "I'll handle the main water pumps. You and two others follow the maintenance protocols for the auxiliary systems. Move fast but carefully." They raced across the farm, cold wind cutting their faces, frost crunching underfoot. Leora worked with two other colonists, following instructions to reset valves, adjust pressure regulators, and check for leaks. Her hands were numb, but she focused, refusing to let exhaustion slow her down. Hours passed, but gradually the alarm stopped. The water flow returned to normal and the farm stabilized. Leora leaned against a railing, exhausted but exhilarated. She had faced fear, pressure, and uncertainty, and had succeeded. She realized that human courage, quick thinking, and teamwork were what saved the colony, not machines alone. Jarek joined her, his expression a mixture of relief and pride. "You've done well, Leora. You've proven yourself today, not just to me but to the colony." She smiled, tired but happy. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance." He shook his head. "No, you had the courage, the focus, and the ability to see what others might miss. That's human strength. You brought hope when it was needed most." The two of them walked back to the ranch house, the sun now dipping low over the horizon. The frost-covered landscape sparkled in the fading light. Leora felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Jarek, but to the colony as a whole. Humans had built this place, survived its challenges, and now thrived because they cared for one another. When they reached the ranch house, Jarek prepared a simple meal of stew and bread, sharing it with Leora. The warmth of the food and the quiet presence of her companion made her feel safe and valued. She realized that sharing meals, sharing work, and sharing hope were what made life meaningful in the harsh frontier. As they ate, Jarek spoke of the future. "There will always be challenges here," he said. "Storms, equipment failures, and unexpected problems. But humans adapt and we survive. That's what matters." Leora nodded, understanding fully now. Life on Elysium 12 was not easy, but it was real and humans made it meaningful. She had faced fear and uncertainty, but she had also discovered her own strength, resourcefulness, and courage. That night, as she lay in her small bed, listening to the wind howl outside, Leora felt a quiet confidence. She had contributed, helped others, and faced challenges she had never imagined. She was no longer just a newcomer. She was a part of this colony, and she had proven that humans, even in the harshest conditions, could rise to meet any challenge. And so, under the faint glow of the colony's artificial Christmas lights, Leora closed her eyes, feeling warmth, pride, and hope. The frontier was still harsh, and life was still difficult, but she now knew that humans could overcome anything. With courage, ingenuity, and compassion, they could thrive, even on the edge of the universe. The morning of Christmas Eve on Elysium 12 began quietly, with frost covering the metal walkways and the pale light of the artificial sun reflecting off the icy surfaces. Despite the cold, there was a sense of anticipation in the air. The colony had survived the recent crises, thanks to quick thinking, teamwork, and human courage. Today, for the first time, the colonists could pause and celebrate, even in the harsh frontier. Leora woke with a sense of excitement she had never felt before. The previous days had been challenging, exhausting, and full of lessons, but they had also brought connection and purpose. She stepped out of the small ranch house, pulling her coat tight, and looked around. The frost glittered like crystals, and the settlement seemed to hum with quiet life. Jarek was already outside, tending to the livestock with his usual efficiency. But today, there was a different energy in his movements, a lighter step, a smile that reached his eyes. Leora felt a warm sense of belonging. For the first time, she truly felt like part of the colony. "Good morning, Leora," Jarek said, looking up from a pen. "Ready for the day?" "I think so," she replied, her voice filled with quiet excitement. "It feels different today." "Christmas Eve," he said simply. "Even here we can make it special." Together they worked through the morning, feeding the livestock, checking fences, and performing routine maintenance. The work was familiar now, almost comforting, a reminder of the life they had built through effort and care. But beneath the routine there was joy, a shared sense of accomplishment and hope. By midday, Jarek invited a few colonists to the ranch house. They arrived carrying small gifts, a knitted scarf, some preserved fruits, and simple decorations for the table. Leora helped set up a modest feast, arranging plates, bread, and a hearty stew on the table. There were no grand decorations, no luxury food, but the warmth of human effort and care filled the space, creating an atmosphere far richer than any machine could provide. As the colonists settled, Jarek handed Leora a small cup of spiced tea. "This is yours," he said gently. "For all you've done these past days, you've helped more than you know." Leora felt a warmth beyond the tea. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and isolation, and yet here she was, surrounded by people who appreciated her courage and effort. She raised the cup with a quiet smile. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." The colonists began to share stories, laughing quietly, recalling past challenges, and celebrating their shared resilience. Leora listened, fascinated. Each story reminded her of the human spirit, resourceful, compassionate, and unyielding. Even on the edge of the universe, humans had built a community, nurtured it, and thrived through connection and care. Jarek joined in, telling tales of past winters, strange alien creatures, and near disasters that had been overcome through quick thinking and teamwork. The room was filled with laughter, admiration, and the comforting sense that humans, above all else, mattered. After the stories, Jarek invited Leora to sit beside him. "You've done something important," he said quietly. "You faced fear, helped stabilize the farm, and learned quickly. That takes courage, intelligence, and heart. Humans like you make this colony possible." Leora felt a rush of emotion. She had feared being alone, useless, or invisible. But here, surrounded by those who appreciated her efforts, she realized that she had value. She was not just surviving, she was contributing, thriving, and becoming part of something larger than herself. As the evening fell, the frost outside sparkled under the colony's artificial Christmas lights. Jarek suggested a small walk, a tradition he had started to remind colonists that the frontier, while harsh, held beauty and wonder. Leora followed him, feeling the cold bite at her cheeks but relishing the crisp, clean air. They reached a small ridge overlooking the settlement. From there, the colony looked peaceful, illuminated by the soft glow of lights and the shimmer of frost. Leora inhaled deeply, appreciating the quiet beauty of the moment. "Look at that," Jarek said, gesturing broadly. "All this, we built it. We survived storms, equipment failures, hunger, and isolation. And we did it together." Leora nodded, feeling a profound sense of awe. Humans had transformed a harsh, frozen world into a home, and she was part of it. She realized that the frontier was not empty or unforgiving. It was full of opportunity for courage, creativity, and connection. As they walked back, they passed other colonists, exchanging smiles and greetings. Even small gestures of kindness, sharing a scarf, offering a warm drink, or lending a hand, felt monumental in this harsh environment. Leora understood that human effort, empathy, and collaboration were what truly sustained life here, far more than machines or technology ever could. Back at the ranch house, the colonists gathered around the small table for a simple Christmas feast. Leora shared a plate with Jarek, laughing and talking as they ate. The food, modest by Earth standards, tasted extraordinary, not because of its ingredients, but because of the care, effort, and shared experience behind it. "You know," Jarek said, breaking a piece of bread, "this is what Christmas really means out here, sharing, caring, and being together. No matter how cold it is or how tough life gets, we make warmth ourselves. That's the human way." Leora nodded, savoring not just the stew but the profound truth of his words. She had arrived alone, hungry, and uncertain, but now she felt a part of something enduring. Humans thrived not because the universe was kind, but because they cared for each other, shared effort, and faced challenges together. After the meal, the colonists exchanged small gifts, laughed at shared memories, and sat quietly by the fire, appreciating the simple comfort of company. Leora received a hand-knitted scarf, and she gave a small, preserved fruit package she had saved from the ranch pantry. It was modest, but it symbolized thoughtfulness, care, and the human connection that made life meaningful. As night fell, Jarek and Leora sat together, sipping tea by the fire. Outside, the wind howled over the frost-covered plains, but inside, humans had created warmth, safety, and hope. Leora felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the food, shelter, or company, but for the realization that humans could make life extraordinary even in the harshest conditions. Today was special, Leora said quietly. I didn't think I could feel happy here, but I do. Jarek nodded, his eyes reflecting the firelight. You should. You earned it. You helped, you cared, and you became part of this colony. That's the best gift anyone can have. Leora smiled, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment and belonging. She had arrived lonely, scared, and uncertain. Now she was valued, connected, and hopeful. Humans had turned a cold, distant world into a place of warmth, courage, and shared purpose. Later, as she lay in her small bed, listening to the wind and the faint hum of machinery, Leora reflected on everything she had experienced. She had discovered courage, resilience, and the power of human connection. She had shared meals, worked alongside others, and helped save the colony. Most importantly, she had learned that humans could thrive anywhere, not because life was easy, but because they brought heart, empathy, and determination to every challenge. The artificial Christmas lights outside her window flickered gently, reflecting off the frost and casting soft, comforting shadows. Leora closed her eyes, feeling a deep sense of peace. She had arrived as a stranger, but she had become part of something enduring. Humans were remarkable, capable of facing fear, solving problems, and creating warmth in even the coldest places. And so, on Elysium 12, a poor Maylorder bride had found more than a meal, a roof, or a place to sleep. She had found purpose, courage, and connection. She had discovered the extraordinary strength of humans, the very thing that made survival not just possible, but meaningful. Outside, the frost sparkled under the distant stars, and the colony hummed quietly, alive with human effort and hope. Leora knew that challenges would come again, that storms, failures, and difficulties would test them. But she also knew that as long as humans worked together, shared meals, and cared for each other, life could be rich, warm, and full of meaning, even on the edge of the universe. And on that Christmas Eve, Leora sipped her tea, shared a quiet smile with Jarek, and felt the true warmth of humanity, a gift far greater than any technology, wealth, or luxury. She had arrived hungry, lonely, and uncertain, but she would stay as someone strong, connected, and alive. Elysium 12, harsh and frozen though it was, had become a home, and in that home humans were extraordinary.